So thank you so much for being here. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Tine Papič. He's a Slovenian Jungian training analyst and supervisor accredited by the IAAP. He studied computer science and philosophy at the University of Ljubljana, psychotherapy science at Sigmund Freud University, Vienna, and data science at the University of Oxford. A former president of the Slovenian Association for Analytical Psychology, he co-founded the Analytic Psychology Study Program and lectures at Sigmund Freud University, Ljubljana. He maintains a private practice at the Open Institute for Psychotherapy, lectures internationally, and has co-authored several books. He's currently undertaking further training in systems psychodynamics at the Tavistock Institute. Alongside his clinical and academic work, he also works as an AI consultant for a major European corporation. Tine, please take it away.
Oh, thank you. A bit of surprise that I'm breaking the ice. If I may, I will share a presentation. I hope you can see it and you can hear me. Hello, everyone from London, where I'm at vacation at the moment. I will take my 10 minutes. So I will explain some ideas briefly. I was thinking of this image. It's a well-known image from a story parable where blind men are touching an elephant, and someone says, "Who's touching the tail? Oh, it's skinny and thin." And someone is touching the stomach and is saying, "Oh, no, 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 it's fat and big." And someone, everyone's touches something else. And I think it's the same with psychological, psychoanalytical theories or any theory of the world. The world, we don't really understand it, how it works. Neither do we really understand from physical side, science. So we always try to make theories and they more or less convey to the outer reality, which we don't really know what it is. And if anyone was thinking, why do dreams present themselves in images? It's an interesting question. Why does not the unconsciousness tell us, what it wants from us? Well, why is there always some really complex images we have to decipher? And one way to look at it, one theory again, could be that this psychological as outer, so also the inner reality is super complex, and only an image, which is imago from Latin, a copy, it's kind of an art. The symbol can convey this multidimensionality of the psyche. So when we are talking about psyche, it's really complex, and it's really multidimensional. So why am I talking about this? Because when we think about society, when we think about politics, we of course think as psychoanalysts, as Jungians. We are not here to comment it from other points of view. Wouldn't make sense. We have to think about it. We need our theories. So we can combine several theories, Freudian, Bionian, Jungian, like the blind man, and we might get the grasp. So the next picture is this is Oscar, which means wild chase, from Franz Stuck. I think I showed this picture. It always stays from me. It's a part of an art. It represents Wotan. Wotan, and there is a famous essay that Jung wrote about Wotan, and it's about this archetype and energy that was starting to accumulate in German nation before the World War II. And Wotan is, of course, a god, an ancient god. It's interesting that this picture was drawn in the year of 1889, when Hitler was born, the same year. So somehow an artist could grasp these forces coming up already before everything started to happen from unconscious. It's an image that has many dimensions. We can think about it, we can make stories, but maybe it relays the psychological truth better than any theory as an art form. Um, I think one of the ways how we Jungians think it's an archetype. It's archetype is kind of something that organizes reality, psychological, physical. We have some theories about it. Jung said he doesn't know what it is actually. We had, I think, not enough theory because some people say archetypes do not exist, and I think Jungians take it too much for granted. So I think we need people who think seriously about it. We can think about Ginny Knox now that I'm in England, or Rösler in Germany. They made some contributions. They try to make this idea scientific, but it's quite reductionist. And I really love and I encourage everyone to read last two big books from Stefano Carta because he went back to Jung and he tries to make the original idea scientific. And it's about this that the archetypes works on all levels. So on personal level, on collective level, on atomic level, on microbiology level. And it's kind of an pattern that organizes everything. And in the sense of Wotan, it organized the collective psyche, which ended up in Second World War. Now I will switch a bit to Bionian theory. I hope you can see it. Uh, what are groups? What are psychological groups? We can be in many psychological groups. So one group is my family. The other group is my fishing club. The third group is psychological group is where I work. Fourth corporation, the psychoanalytical society where we have all the fights. Could be also the nation, the psychological group. And we have certain knowledge, psychological knowledge about how groups works, any of this. And one person can be in many groups at the same time, but they all have certain rules, certain way of functioning, and certain unconscious. So when we think about politics, we can use this theory. So what did Beyond said? He observed something really interesting, that groups have in essence two working mode, and one is the working mode. This is now on the national level, where let's say the group works. The group has an internal myths. We all have myth stories that in our mind we described our world to us, kind of cosmology. And also on collective level, we have these stories how world functions. It could be religion, it could be ideology, and it's unconscious. Zizek said it's unconscious. We are not really aware about our stories that describe our world. It's on kind of unconscious level. But what we can take from beyond, like the blind man, another view, is that these groups, psychological groups, they can function well as working group. They can test their myths that describe with reality and say, okay, this is true, this works, this doesn't work. Or especially under stress, they can fall into a it's called basic assumption group, where it can be about dependency. So they can look at their leader, what he's saying, and they're totally dependent on him. So they don't do the job they need to do. They can be in fight or flight mode, or pairing mode. Pairing mode is a sort of, something will happen. There will be a solution. Someone will come. Fight and flight mode on national level, we can hate the other. We can have strange stories. If we think about Israel and Palestine, they're in fight or flight mode. They it's not a rational working group what happened there. It's kind of myths, stories that do not make sense even for them. They are not really working well for anyone. And it becomes because the societies are under huge pressure. And this is where this kind of regression happens. Now, we Jungians, when we think about collective, and I think Tom will say, I guess, a lot about it, since he's one of the major thinkers in this area. We have the story about cultural complexes. And where do these theories combine? We are in a certain psychological group. It can be the nation, but it can be also the left or the right. for instance, political parties and so on. And they have these stories, inner stories. They have the archetypal chord, which is driving certain group psychological, and this is our Jungian contribution, which works and organized thinking. And they can work nicely as a work group, or they can work, as a basic assumption group with fight or flight dynamics and so on. And for instance, in society as complex as in psyche, if the tension is too strong, if the tension is okay, we are neurotic. If the tension is too strong on personal level, we might, the defense mechanisms are destroyed and we get psychotic. And it can happen on the social level. Also, the defense mechanisms on the social level, on the state levels are institutions. And if these tensions are too big, the complex is too strong, we can get into kind of if the institutions stop working, we can get into a civil war, which is kind of collective psychosis. I guess Americans will recognize this. This was a short episode of collective psychosis when institutions, kind of collective defense mechanisms stopped to work. So I will look at one other picture, then I will slowly end. One of what we can also take from system psychodynamics is if the leader is kind of narcissistic of such group and group is in dependency mode to this leader, and this leader, narcissistic leader, they cannot stand being criticized because it's too painful. So on systemic level, they will purge people who are critical, which you need for the working group because they test reality. They say this is not true. Here we are wrong and so on. And they will change with people who say yes, who confirm again their inner mythology. At the end, they're surrounded with a group of people who are not critical. We are again in independent group, which is not kind of a complex, we would say, which inner reality. It's not a working group. It's not well tested with inner mythos stories of the world are not well tested with reality because of this, because of such kind of leader where there is no one critical. And I think this is how we ended in world at the end today. That this cultural complex which took power, let's say in US, there was not enough people who would be critical, or they were removed, like most of the army now, who said maybe the idea of going to war is bad. So kind of from this group theory, they're living in their own world, which is their theory, their stories are not really well tested and adjusted with reality. And I think this is where we are. And I think these were my 10 minutes. So thank you.